What is the difference between Jupyter Notebooks and a normal Python script?
I've been working with the Jupyter Notebook, and you ask me, what is a Jupyter Notebook? Usually what we do when we program together, we use Visual Studio Code. And for example, we can do stuff here like make classes, make modules, we can import files, we can convert stuff, we can do all sorts of things.
Everything.
Everything. This tool is great for creating programs, things like web apps or GUI apps.
What is the difference between Jupyter Notebooks and a normal Python script?
It is the third thing, that is the most obvious thing, which is regular scripts. If I would do it here in the Visual Studio, then we would create, for example, we would do some import, then we would print the result, then we do some transform, and we also print the result, and then finally we have some output, which could be a PNG image. But I would have to click on it to show it.
And with the Jupyter Notebook, you have it in one task.
Yeah, you have it in one notebook, and that notebook, let me show you. So for example, a Jupyter Notebook can have text files like you see here, and it can also have notebooks, and these notebooks then can have Python code in them. They can run shell commands like a pip install, stuff like that. And you can also insert explanatory text. The visual output is not in the terminal where it's just text, but you can also have diagrams like these in a Jupyter Notebook.
Can you show me an example?
Yes, I will. We have two options. We can run it on a local machine, or we can just run it directly in the browser. So I'm going to install it on my local machine in this example. If you go to jupyter.org/install, you see the instructions. You just do a pip install notebook and then run the notebook like this. So let me show you. I create a virtual environment for this, activate it, and pip install notebook. There we go. So when it is installed, I can execute Jupyter Notebook. And this will start a local server. It opens a Jupyter Notebook in my browser. And as you see, this points to my local host. So this is running on my local machine.
What do we do now?
Yeah.
What can we do now?
What can we do now? So let me first create a text file. And in here, I create some data that you know from the courses we create. I create Vera with salary 2000. We have Chuck with 1700. And then Dave with 2100. So this is a text file, and I'm going to use this for data.
Can I import this data?
Yeah, let me rename this. I'm going to call this employees. So now I have this home tab, and you see it. Let me refresh this. Yeah, employees.txt. And I'm going to create a new file here. And that is not a Python file, but a notebook.
Is notebook a language?
No, it is stored in a markup language. It is JSON. I can show this. Let me create this one. I'm going to rename it, and I'm just going to call this main. Let me have a look here. So I'm going to create a new tab. Let me see what it created. Here is the file that I just created. There's an employees.txt, and there's a main. So if I open this, this is just JSON, and it describes the cells that are in a notebook, and I'll show you what that means. So let me exit this. I double click the main notebook, and now I can start to create a script. And this is what I like, because you know how I like to program. I always start with some comments like, what am I going to do? So what do we need to do? We need to import a text file. So import employees file. And I can choose that this is raw text. So now I have a cell which is raw text. This is just text, it won't do anything because I can execute these cells. When I click on execute, it just passed without doing anything. Now there's another one. We need to transform the data because when you look at the text file, they have rows and columns, and when I want to put this in a diagram like this, I need data for the x-axis and for the y-axis. So we need to transform data. And this is also raw text. That's my second step. Then with this button here, I can create a cell underneath. Finally, we need to show in a diagram. And I'm going to use matplotlib for this. That's a diagram package. And to use it, I need to install it. So
here or in the terminal?
That's a good question. I think I can also install it in the terminal, but I'm going to do it here in this script. So I could theoretically give you this notebook that you can also do it on your machine. So what I do is I need an extra cell above where I not import, but install packages, which will be matplotlib. So I'm going to make this raw and this one too, I forgot. So now I could choose to say run all cells, and it will just start from the top and go to the bottom. You can see this as comments, but it's more than comments, but because you can also make this into Markdown and you can do all sort of fancy things here. Let's start by importing the employees file. So I will create a new cell, and this is going to be a code cell. And what we need to do is we can just use Python code here. I can say employees.text as file. I'm going to get all lines from the file. So file.read, and I'm going to split it on lines. And the next step is to split it on commas to get the columns. So I can create a list. I will use some list comprehension for this. And I will split each element on the comma. So if I press this button, only this cell now will be executed. So if I run it, it executes, but we don't see anything. So
would we get an error if there is at this point anything wrong?
Oh, let's test that. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I like it.
Me too. I could do two things. I could print something, but I don't need it. I can just type employees and it will print the output. So this is exactly what I want. It's a list where each element is also a list of a name and salary.
So again, your code is Python code?
Yes, this is Python code. So that's a good question. Jupyter Notebooks can work with 3 languages. That's where the name Jupyter comes from. One of the languages is Julia, one is Python, and one is R.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now we have done this import employees file. I have a list where each element is again a list, and I want 2 lists from this, where one is a list of names and one is a list of salaries. So I will create a new cell, and I'm going to execute Python code here, and I'm going to create data for the x-axis. I'm going to pick the first element of each list for the x-axis. So let me print this and run it. Yeah, that works. That's Vera, Chuck, and Dave.
I'm surprised if this is Python code that you don't have to say print x.
So when we create a script with Visual Studio Code, it's being executed by the Python interpreter. But to print something back to the terminal, we need to use the print command. There's one thing that you and I don't often do, and that's that we just type the Python command. And here we can do something like a equals 10. And then I just type a and do enter, and then it's also being printed.
Yes, that's something I have seen before.
Yeah. So I'm going to do the same for the y-axis. So I'm here now. I create a cell above. Y equals E for E in employees. And this time I'm going to pick the second element. And when I print it, then indeed you see 2,000, 1,700, and 2,100. These are the salaries. Now, there's one thing we need to do, because when you look at this, you see that these are strings. Of course, they're strings because we read a text file. So I need to convert these to a float. This is the cool part now. I don't have to run this whole code before. I can just run this cell again by clicking here. And then you see that indeed I have floats now. So that is transforming the data. Now we get to the last step, which is show in a diagram. So I add a new cell. And for this, I need to import matplotlib.pyplot as plt. And this probably won't work because I don't think I saw matplotlib in the list of packages. So let me run this. And indeed, it says module not found error. So now comes the first step. We need to install the packages. And I will do it in the start of the Jupyter Notebook. So I will pip install. But when I execute a shell command and not a Python command, I am going to add an exclamation mark. This explicitly tells a Jupyter Notebook to execute this command in the terminal, in the shell. So I will install matplotlib and I can execute this now. There we go.
You just have to execute this once.
I go to kernel and do a restart of the kernel. So I'm going to run everything from top to bottom. Yeah, okay, so that, look at this, requirement already satisfied. So this installation is persistent. We don't need to do this again. Install packages, that has been done now. Then import employees file, that worked also. Then I'm going to transform the data. I have the data for the x-axis, then for the y-axis. And now we are ready to show it in a diagram because this command worked, but it of course does not do anything yet.
I'm surprised. In Python, I see often the import statements at the top. Here it is at the bottom. Is that normal?
It is common to put all the imports in the top of the file, and I would also recommend it. So I could also move this cell to the top. But when I look at these Jupyter Notebooks, I often see that people import it as they need it. So you could have two arguments. Either you keep everything together in one cell, or you put all the imports at the top. I don't really have a recommendation for this. There's an empty cell here. I'm not sure if that's a problem, so I delete it. I'm going to call subplots from PLT, and the result of that is a tuple, which I'm only interested in the second element, which I will call x. And once I have this, I can call bar on it, and I'm going to pass the data for x and y. And the only thing I need to do now is actually plot the graph.
Yeah, let's see it.
Excellent choice. Let me run it.
Nice.
And that's how you do it in a Jupyter Notebook. And the cool thing, of course, now is that you get this visual feedback without having to open an image on your local machine.
Is it now easy to print it or to copy it into an email or something like this?
Yes, you can. You can export it as a PDF or HTML or whatever you want.
That's a nice feature. Have you ever used it in your own project? Can you show it?
Actually, no, because for the trainings I create or for a website or whatever, I always use Visual Studio and write a chunk of code. This is more if you're into data science and you're dealing with streams of data, you want to import them, transfer them, but immediately look at the result and then export them and create images from it. So I would say that this is really interesting if you are into data science.
Yes, I think it's nice for presentations. Yes, I like it.
Thanks. Probably I will show more Jupyter Notebook stuff in the future, but in the meantime, just have a look at one of my other videos and we'll see each other soon.
Thank you.